to the Aboriginal channel. This episode will be another part of Ancestor Search. So right here is an article from CNN.com back in 2009, 11 years ago. But it says right here, a mass grave unearthed Tuesday in downtown Montgomery, Alabama, is believed to contain bodies from an epidemic of yellow fever that swept the city in the 1870s, police said. So we're going to get down to if it was an actual yellow fever that swept through in the 1870s, or if it was something more sinister than that. So it says 2 buildings from the 1940s were torn down at the site, and maintenance workers grading the land in preparation for the construction of a new building uncovered the remains, said Montgomery police. The site is adjacent to a cemetery, he said, and based on the information we have from historical documents kept by the actual cemetery, it does appear that it may be remains from a yellow fever epidemic in the 1870s, says officials from the Alabama Archaeological Society and the Alabama Historical Association were at the site and are expected to be able to confirm that. It was not immediately known how many bodies might be buried at the site, Thornton said, but authorities are reassuring the public there is no cause for concern. The remains are clearly too old to suggest any recent activity. According to an article posted online by the Mississippi Project of the American Local Historic Network, an extensive outbreak of yellow fever occurred in 1878, spreading across 8 states, but particularly affecting Alabama, Louisiana, and Mississippi. Some 16,000 people died from the disease that year alone, according to the article. So it's according to that article, 16,000 people died in 1878 from the yellow fever. But I don't believe that. But let's get into it. So Montgomery, Alabama is basically real close in proximity to these Civil War battles right here. And one thing that's very closely connected to the Civil War is the preceding decade after the Civil War that they called the Reconstruction era. So when you think about the Civil War and the fact that we know they buried our people in mass graves all over the place, and then you go into the Reconstruction era, you have to go back to this article and look where he says that based on information we have from historical documents kept by the actual cemetery. So I'm saying right here that those so-called historical documents created sometime in the late 1870s were part of the so-called Reconstruction, but really construction. And so that they constructed the documents to fit a certain narrative. And this one is that a so-called yellow fever occurred and took out 16,000 people in 1 year. Now, when we're speaking of documents, we have to go in and look at some of our own historical documents. So when we go in a place like, for an example, Kentucky's research outline, and we look at the counties, it says that Caldwell County was created in 1809, but a disaster in 1864 destroyed some records. Now, to me, that's the same thing as saying a yellow fever came through and killed 16,000 people in 1 year in 1878, because it's not telling you what kind of disaster came through in 1864, smack dab in the middle of the Civil War, and destroyed records. Over in the Alabama's county information, right here in Jackson County, which is located way up here in this big county at the northeastern corner of Alabama, where it says there was no Civil War battles at. But in the Alabama research information, it says that Union troops burned the courthouse and most of the records in 1864. Also in Alabama, in Covington County, it says county records destroyed by fires in 1839 and 1878. 1878, the same year they saying the yellow fever came through, especially in Alabama. It would have been important to burn the documents in such a late date as of 1878, because in the following decade, the Dawes rolls were created to where people were able to go and put their name down as being a certain member of a certain tribe. And there was no other documents there to prove that to be false, because they had already went through and destroyed them. Like right here, it says the courthouse was destroyed by fire in 1851, 10 years after Coffee County was created in 1841. And you can chase this county back to a specific tribe. Like right here, it says the parent county was Dale. Then when you go down to Dale, it says it was created from Covington, Henry, Pike, and Barber. Covington was created from Henry, Barber was created from Pike, and land that had been ceded to the state by the Creek Indians. Henry was made from Conecuh County. Conecuh County was made from Monroe, and then it says the courthouse burned in 1865. So we're going to go look at where Monroe and Pike came from. Monroe, created in 1815 from Washington and land ceded to the state by the Creek Indians. By 1833, it says a courthouse fire destroyed all records prior to 1833. In 1830, the Indian Removal Act was passed. So after that, they came in, tried to kick you out and burned your courthouse and all your records, destroying your identity. But we're going to keep going so we can track this back. So far, we tracked that one county to the Creek Indians. So it says Pike came from Henry and Montgomery counties. So we know where Henry came from. So Montgomery County, we got to check that out and then go down to Washington County. It says the Montgomery County came from Monroe County, which Monroe right here came from the Creek in the Washington County. So let's go see where Washington County came from. Washington County came from Baldwin and the Mississippi Territory. So Baldwin belonged to the Choctaw Indians. So basically, that one county came from the Choctaw and the Creek Indians. So that's how you chase some of this information will allow you to chase a county back to a tribe, like right here, Jackson County, which is that big northeastern county in Alabama. It says came from the Cherokee Indians, where the Union troops burnt the courthouse and most of the county records in 1864. Now, they say that a yellow fever came through in 1878, but right here in Mississippi, they were making counties. Like in 1877, they made Quitman County. 1876, they made Sharkey County. 1874, they made Sumner County. 1873, they made Tate County. Then let's go back over here to Kentucky, where all these disasters, like right here in Callaway County, a disaster in 1906 destroyed most records. Now, they so-called closed the Dawes Rolls in 1907, but they let people continue to put their names down until 1914. So right here, when it says a disaster in 1906 destroyed most records, that's because they destroyed the records and then some more people came in and put their name down as such and such and whatever tribe. Sometimes they would duplicate the name as they did the tribe. And then down here, it says a disaster in 1980 destroyed some of the records. So in 1988, they allowed casinos, the tribes to open casinos. So they were making sure that the people that came after 1886, when this county was created, and right smack dab inside of the Dawes Rolls, the so-called black folks that came and put their name down and they tried down, they made sure all those old records were definitely destroyed by 1980. That could have been a scenario, and another scenario could have been to where the Eskimos, they allowed to come in, they took them out and replaced them with, good old colonists. Either one is plausible because the people who put the plan together for the casinos in the 1980 were not Eskimos. We're going to move down a little bit in Kentucky's information. It says in Christian County, a disaster in 1864 destroyed most records. Clinton County, a disasters in 1865 and 1890 destroyed some records. Crittenden County, disasters in 1865 and 1870 destroyed most records. Cumberland County, 1865 and 1933 destroyed most records. In the 1930s, you had what was called the Indian Reorganization Act, where they was giving a bunch of so-called Indians land. So in 1933, they was tying up loose ends by destroying most records. Daviess County, a disaster in 1865 destroyed some records. So it goes on and on like this. So what we know is that they saying that a yellow fever came through in 1878 and killed a bunch of people, especially in Alabama, Louisiana, and Mississippi. But when you go over here to Alabama, you see that it says that county records were destroyed by fires in 1839 and 1878. So they were destroying records at the same time the yellow fever was coming through. And then we also got to take into account that at one of the first HBCUs in Virginia that opened in 1868, it says that in 1878, it established a program for teaching Native Americans that lasted until 1923. So that's another 1878 date. Through the history books, which has all been a lie. So therefore, if it's a lie, then what's the truth? If it's a lie, then what's the truth?